This video is brought to you with the support of TrueFire. Practice smart and play hard with TrueFire. Welcome to 5 Watt World. We're interested in helping you get the most music from the least gear. I started out, as most of us did as kids in the 70s, on acoustic. But after ingesting endless hours of Genesis, I knew it was time to start looking for an electric. And an electric shaped like the ones that Steve Hackett was playing in Genesis, a Gibson Les Paul. I was in college, and my part-time job at Radio Shack was barely covering the gas for commuting to school, so I knew this was going to be a Japanese copy of some kind. I ended up with a Hondo 2. Bolt neck, maple fingerboard, so many things wrong for a Les Paul, but the price was right and the shape was right to fuel my youthful imaginings of rock stardom. That was around 1980, and I had no idea that Gibson had started working on their own version of a budget Les Paul, a guitar to satisfy the mission of giving me a taste of Les Paul champagne on my Genesee cream ale budget. So if you've always wondered about the history of these stripped-down guitars, you're in the right place, because this is the 5 Watt World short history of the Gibson Les Paul Studio. If you like this style of video, be sure to subscribe, and to support what we do here, grab a t-shirt, hoodie, or a 5 Watt World Barber Collaboration overdrive pedal. To become an even bigger part of 5 Watt World, sign up for the Friends of 5 Watt on Patreon. There's a friend level to suit any budget. And if you've always wanted to have your own YouTube channel, but you didn't know where to start, buy my YouTube Mastery for Musicians course. All the links are in the description. Launched in 1952, it took Gibson a few years to get to a solid working version of the Les Paul. By 1957, they'd moved to using their new humbucking pickup, and though sales numbers were down, the guitars built in 1958, 59, and 60 are seen as the pinnacle of Les Paul history. It's probably fair to say that all the best Les Pauls since have been trying to get back to the magic of those 3 years. At the start of the historic Les Paul models in the early 1980s, Gibson decided that they needed a new approach to building a less expensive Les Paul. The original, cheaper Les Paul was the Les Paul Jr. and was originally released in 1953. It quickly outsold all the original Les Paul models combined. Gibson had accomplished their goals of bringing new and younger players to the brand and set them on the path to one day buying a Les Paul Standard or a Custom. But the early 80s less expensive Les Paul project was a new idea altogether. They wanted to build a streamlined, less expensive guitar, but with a carved top that gave it more of the look and feel of a Standard. But the goal was the same as the original, bringing new and young players into the Gibson ecosystem and on track for that Standard or Custom in the long run. A lot of thought went into the name of the guitar. By the mid-80s, Bruce Boland had become Vice President of Marketing and Research and Development at Gibson. Boland realized that nothing was more associated with Les himself than the recording studio, and so the model became the Les Paul Studio. One of the people on the team called it stripping off the gingerbread. Principally, this meant stripping off the binding from the neck and body to lower production costs. The Les Paul Studio was announced in the summer of 1983 dealer magazine, the Gibson Gazette, and first appeared on the price list at $699. This put it at $300 cheaper than any other carved top Les Paul at the time. At launch, it had an unbound rosewood fingerboard with dot markers, an unbound carved top body, 2 metal-covered humbucking pickups, Gibson 4 control knobs, 2 volume, 2 tone, and 1 selector switch for the pickups. There was either a cream or laminated black plastic pickguard. There was the classic 6-saddle bridge with a separate tailpiece. The truss rod cover at the headstock read Studio. The model would go through many changes over the years. The first run of the guitars had an alder body, but a problem of applying the finish to the alder resulted in a quick change to the usual mahogany and maple combination soon after. Interestingly, it was decided to make the new bodies about 1/8 of an inch thinner than a Les Paul Standard, lowering weight and production costs slightly. In '84, they launched a model with gold hardware, the Studio Custom. Also in '84, they launched a Studio Standard, similar in spec to the Studio, but with bound neck and body. Rather debatable whether this was an upscale Studio or a downscaled Standard, but the name is what it is. '85 saw the Studio synthesizer model, wired ready for the Roland 700 guitar synthesizer system. By '87, some studios were being made with ebony fingerboards. This seems like an unusual choice, as ebony has traditionally been used for fingerboards on higher-end guitars. In fact, a lower grade of ebony was used, and it was less expensive than the rosewood being imported from India at the time. So Gibson was keeping to its original goal of creating a less expensive Les Paul with the wood prices in the market in the mid-'80s. Matthew Klein had joined Gibson's small custom team in 1986, and he brought with him some interesting experiments with balsa wood. For fun, he'd built a balsa body Les Paul, discovering that it sustained well and sounded fine unplugged. Balsa has good resonating qualities, and despite popular misconception, the wood isn't cheap. His experimental Les Paul weighed about 4 pounds, less than half what the standards weighed, sometimes topping out at 11 pounds given the mahogany they were using at Gibson at the time. Gibson experimented with putting it in a Superstrat, the US-1, but the guitar turned out to be too expensive to produce. Next, they used a mix of balsa and spruce in the Chet Atkins SST models launched in '87. By 1988 to 1990, they ran their first version of the Studio Light guitars with unbound ebony fingerboards, dot markers. There was a slightly thinner unbound mahogany body with a contoured back, 2 plastic-covered humbucking pickups, volume and tone controls, and a 3-way switch and a mini toggle switch, 6-saddle bridge, and a tailpiece in black-plated or gold-plated hardware. In '91, they finally started using balsa to address the weight problem in the Les Paul line. The existing Les Paul Light was modified to incorporate balsa inserts. Gibson renamed the balsa wood chromite out of fear people would associate balsa with cheap toy airplanes. A custom light had been introduced in '87 that had a contoured back like you'd find on a Stratocaster. The wood removed to create the contour cut the weight and made the guitar more comfortable to play sitting down at the same time. To pay for the extra workmanship, the custom light was priced at $1,249, while the custom at the time was $1,170. In '88, they applied this approach to the new model at the Studio Light. Again, they charged extra, with the Studio priced at $909 and the Studio Light at $974. The balsa-enhanced Studio Light of 1990 was given a regular flat back and again a slimmer neck compared to its previous version. A D-shaped cutout in the guitar body left the bridge and tailpiece connected to the back, while the space around it was filled in with balsa, losing pounds in the process. The model lasted until 1998, after which the balsa experiment was finished. In '92, we saw the introduction of the M3 wiring. As part of that experiment, they released the Studio Light M3. The M3 circuitry provided many more tonal options and was the brainchild of J.T. Ribeloff in the custom shop. They put the wiring in the Classic as well, but it only lasted there a year. Ribeloff felt that the Studio Light was better suited to the M3 sound, the tone and the lightweight body sitting well with the sonic possibilities of the circuitry. The Studio Light M3 lasted until '95 before it too was dropped. The earliest Studio models had dot inlays, which fit the historic use of dots on Gibson's less expensive models. But around 1990, the Les Paul plastic crown markers were adopted. This was a marketing decision to do something that would give it a more visual appeal without greatly affecting cost. The model name continued from 1990 to 1998 with crown markers, Les Paul model on the headstock, lightweight carved top, flat back body, 2 uncovered humbucking pickups, and the standard 4 controls and 3-way switch. From '96 to '98, Gibson built a limited run of guitars called the Les Paul Studio Gem with a rosewood fingerboard and P90 pickups. These were mainly targeted at the Japanese market, but many found homes elsewhere in the world. Appropriately enough, they came in 5 colors: amethyst, sapphire, topaz, emerald, and ruby. In '99 and 2000, Gibson used 3/4 size crown markers before going back to the full-size markers in 2001, and they've kept those till the present day. Sales numbers from the late '90s showed that the Studio was an ongoing success, consistently being one of Gibson's top-selling models. I've been using TrueFire for over a decade, so they were the perfect partner for 5-Watt World. Like a lot of guitar players, I'm interested in all kinds of music. With over 1,500 courses from 400 artists, TrueFire always has something to scratch the itch I have for learning more about guitar. To take full advantage of the variety, I've always subscribed to the All Access Pass, which lets me use everything in the TrueFire catalog. As a viewer of 5-Watt World, you get an exclusive 50% discount on the All Access Pass, or you can use our code to get 35% off any course in the catalog by simply using the dedicated links at the top of the video description. I've learned so much from TrueFire over the years that I'm confident that you can too. Sign up using the links in the description to support 5-Watt World and get some great lessons at the same time. Practice smart and play hard with TrueFire. I'd like to thank TrueFire for their support in making this video. The later history of the studio is a wonderful parade of interesting and unique, if short-lived, models. 2000 brought us the Studio Gothic with an ebony fingerboard, moon and star marker at the 12th fret, black hardware, and flat black finish. 2001 to 2005, there was a run of Studio Plus and Studio Deluxe guitars with figured maple tops and gold hardware. From 2003 to 2008, they gave us the Smartwood Studio with a green leaf on the truss rod cover. It had an unbound tropical hardwood fingerboard with dot markers and an unbound tropical hardwood carved top of certified sustainable wood on a mahogany back. It shipped with gold hardware, but without a pickguard. In 04 and 05, they built a 28-inch scale Studio Baritone with simple dot markers in black, pewter metallic, and sunrise orange. Overlapping these years was a stripped-down Swamp Ash Studio that ran from 2003 to 2008 that featured a lightweight Swamp Ash body, no binding, unmarked rosewood fingerboard, mahogany neck, and a natural satin finish throughout. During the same years, they built the Les Paul Studio Mahogany, sometimes referred to as the Vintage Mahogany model. With a carved mahogany body and top, nickel-plated hardware, they came in either worn brown or worn cherry finish. 2005 to 2008 saw the addition of the Les Paul Studio Premium Plus with fancy maple tops and with a cream truss rod cover. In 2007, they built a short run of Studio BFG guitars. These had a P90 neck pickup and a zebra coil humbucker in the bridge, 3 control knobs, and a kill switch toggle. The bodies were rough-routed carved tops that were then not sanded and finished, but had a thin matte finish. 2009 brought us the Studio Raw Power models with unbound maple fretboards, 3-piece maple neck, dot inlay, with a single crown at the 12th fret, solid maple body, covered buckers in either chrome or gold hardware. This unusual configuration ran until 2012. 2012 saw a Studio model that at a glance looked like a guitar from a decade earlier, but the fretboard had been changed from rosewood to granadillo. Granadillo is a South American wood that's actually denser than rosewood. They also added push-pull coil tapping pots in 2012, along with a pair of 490R and 498T pickups. Also in 2012 was a Studio 70s tribute model with mini humbuckers in both gold top and burst finishes. 2013 brought the much-maligned mini-tune system, an attempt at mechanical self-tuning, most of which were swapped out for standard tuners in the long run. 2014 saw them go back to the rosewood fingerboard, but more changes came in 2015 with the move to the G-Force tuners, a 0-fret and wider fretboard but not wider string spacing that plagued the entire 2015 Gibson line. It's a love it or hate it thing, but be sure to try one before you buy it. They also moved to the 57 Classic Neck and 57 Classic Plus bridge pickups that year. In 2016, they sent the model back to the 490R and the 498T pickups, and interestingly, all the colors shipped with a rosewood fretboard except the popular Alpine White, which had a throwback to the Granadillo fretboard of 2012. 2017 saw a move to Grover kidney tuners as stock, though it also shipped with G-Force tuning machines then. 2018, they gave us plain maple tops with a bound rosewood fretboard along with the move back to 57 Classic pickups. Also launched in 2018, the Les Paul Studio Elite line, a bound fretboard and a beautiful silver burst finish, shipping with either a stop tail or a B5 style Bigsby tailpiece. And in 2019, the model settled into the specs that carry us up to 2024, settling into the 490R, 498T humbuckers. They also had a Studio Tribute model in 2019 that had full mahogany body and uncovered pickups, unbound fretboard with dot markers, later updated to the trapezoids again, so you'll see both of those in the used market. And in 2023, Gibson launched a Les Paul Modern Light, which is a studio in every way but its name. Designed to be the least expensive Les Paul on the line, it featured a thinner, solid mahogany body with a back contour, unbound fingerboard with dot inlays, 490 humbucky pickups, a satin nitro finish, mini Grover tuners, and sold for $14.99. The current Gibson catalog has 5 studio models. The current base Les Paul Studio comes with a modern weight relief mahogany body with a plain maple cap. There's a mahogany neck with bound rosewood fretboard, and a slim taper profile neck. Burst Bucker Pro pickups with push-pull coil taps on the volume knobs for $15.99. The Les Paul Studio Metallic in Pelham Blue with neck binding on a mahogany neck, and natural wood showing at the edge of the plain maple top, giving us the look of binding there too. Described as ultra-modern weight relief mahogany body, mahogany neck, cream plastics, Burst Bucker Pro pickups with push-pull coil taps, all for $17.99. The Les Paul Studio figured top model adds a figured maple top to the above specs and without the natural edge to the top, also for $17.99. Next is the Les Paul Studio Modern with an unbound fingerboard and black chrome hardware, again $17.99. And finally, we have the top of the line Les Paul Studio Session with an upgraded AA figured maple cap, an ebony fingerboard, countered heel joint, nitrocellulose finish, with nickel or black chrome hardware and 57 classic pickups with push-pull knobs for phase and pure bypass switching, all for $1,999. The Studio model is in every way a real Les Paul. It was simply built to be less expensive by trimming off the gingerbread. So much so that artists seem to go back to the aesthetic of the studio guitar of their youth when given the chance to design a signature model. Joe Perry did this when they released his signature Les Paul in '96. Produced for just 3 years, these rare and striking transparent black guitars fetch high prices today, given that, for all practical specs, they mimic the late '90s Studio model. When Gary Moore was given the chance to design a signature Les Paul, the man that had owned Peter Green's '59 Burst ended up speccing a standard that shared many traits of a Studio model, right down to the lack of binding on the body and the neck. The BFG model is also connected with Moore, and you'd be hard-pressed to find a more stripped-down version of the lauded single cut than that guitar. And Zakk Wylde also leaned into the rough and ready BFG style guitar with a signature model as well. So embrace your inner Les Paul player, grab a Studio, and settle into the knowledge that you're playing a real Gibson guitar, and not just one on your way to buying a Les Paul custom like the guys at the headquarters might want you to buy someday. And remember that playing that stripped down acts, that you're in very, very good company. First, I need to thank David Barber and the Sits for writing, performing, and producing the intro and outro music for the video on his Les Paul Plus. It's his only carved top Les Paul, and he's clearly fine with that. He and his bandmates remind us that David's writing and playing here helps us bring us all those excellent pedals. The track leads heavily into the 5-watt World Barber Electronic Bus and Plus pedals, of course. If you're interested in starting your own YouTube channel, check out my course, YouTube Mastery for Musicians. I outline all the parts of starting and running a channel there. It's me trying to pay it forward at an attainable price. In particular, I need to thank the Friends of 5-Watt on Patreon. It's the guitar community I've always wanted. You're all 5-Watt world, I just make the videos. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, and if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that too. Thanks for hanging with me until the end. Until next time, I'm Keith Williams. Thanks for being a part of the 5-Watt world.